Welcome to the Shifting with Marlee podcast. I'm Marlee. Thank you for joining me wherever you are. All that I ask of you, the listener, is to have an open mind and an open heart. And in return, I offer you myself. Today, we are going to talk about tapping into your power and your intuition. I believe accessing our power and connecting to our intuition is the next step in human evolution. Here to help me talk about these powerful topics is Nikki Norenberg. Nikki is a self-discovery mentor and coach and an intuitive guide. Welcome, Nikki.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited for you to be here. And Nikki and I are actually connected through Sam Adams. And for those of you who have listened to the podcast for a while, Sam was featured on episode 5, Gratitude, and episode 7, Self-Love Will Save the World. And Sam actually worked with Nikki last year through one of her one-on-one coaching programs. And I know that Sam really benefited and grew a lot from working with you. And I've wanted to talk to you for a while. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really grateful.
Oh, thank you for having me. And yes, I mean, Sam is such a gift, and I'm so happy that your audience has had the ability to listen to her. She has so much wisdom to share as well. So I feel honored to be kind of following her here as well.
Thank you. And before we dive in, Nikki, where can people find you and connect with you online?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like the gram is probably the easiest place.
Instagram,
Yeah. So my handle is at Nikki, Nikki.Norenberg, Norenberg. And that's probably the easiest way. And then all of the links to my websites and the work that I do are in the bio.
Perfect. And you also have an amazing website, NikkiNorenberg.com, if anyone wants to go straight there as well to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Nikki, can you start by sharing with us your mission and your passion and what you offer with your coaching and mentoring business?
Mm-hmm. Great question. My mission really is to get people feeling so deeply connected to themselves that they are not only able to love themselves, but love their life and everyone around them. Being, stuck in varied situations in my life where I felt so unfulfilled and like the worst version of myself, I knew that that was not a way that I wanted to continue living. So I just put it into the universe. I was like, I'm making it my mission to figure out what the heck I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to really uncover my purpose and like the deepest part of my essence. Like, what am I supposed to be doing here? And so that's kind of what I've brought into my work is I work with people to find their purpose, to connect deeply with themselves, to connect with their intuition, and to really take ownership over their lives, not in a businessy way, but in a really profound, deep way. Because I know that so much of the environment that we live in is so kind of masculine in structure, but really where the deep connection and the deep fulfillment and happiness occurs is so deep beneath the surface, and it's very feminine and it's very trusting. And so that is kind of the way that I connect with everybody that I work with as well.
And how do you structure your programs and your offerings when you're working with people or with a group?
Yeah. So I have a couple different offerings. I'll mainly speak about the coaching program first, but I feel like it is actually very divinely masculinely structured, I like to say. It's organized. I have 6 different modules that tackle everything from, understanding your surface level, time and energy management, and it digs all the way deeply into inner child and values and everything in between. But in that course, because I lay it out as a course, there's also a guided journal that goes alongside of it. And so those are the 2 best friends that kind of take you through the course, and it's kind of your journey, your experience to go through the content and then reflect on your own time. And then where I come in is kind of in all of these different checkpoints. And it really helps to just kind of humanize the experience that happens in your reflection. It helps to guide, and it also is a wonderful source of accountability. It keeps things moving. sometimes doing the deep work gets a little bit heavy or a little bit challenging to keep moving through. So I find that those check-ins and the accountability portion is so incredibly important. But, I do the course one-on-one, but I also do this program in a group setting. And so that element has Facebook and, happy hours and community gatherings involved where everyone is kind of connecting with one another to provide support, insight, and honestly, just a little bit of fun. So those are the general structures that I like to line up my programs with because, and to go actually a little bit deeper, I should say, the real structure beyond like the buckets that it falls under is the way that I have people discover themselves. I usually start every assignment with some sort of observation where you're becoming the seat of the observer and you're just watching and paying attention. And then you go a step further and you start to analyze and understand, okay, what's pulling me off my baseline? Where am I gravitating toward? And then you do the drill down, which is a little bit frustrating in the moment, but it's like, let's get further and further into detail. Give me more clarity. Give me more reason as to why you're trying to pull at these parts. And then after those things are surfaced, then there's action. There's so much action affiliated with my program. And I think that that's what gets people energized about doing the work is that they're able to go through that kind of funnel, I guess you could say, of the process of analysis and then leave and do something with that. Whereas sometimes when we go through a healing or discovery journey, it just sits inside of ourselves. And so that is the structure of how I follow them through the self-discovery journey.
I know you're the queen of action, Nikki. Sam calls you that. And it seems to me that, with everything you're describing, you're able to offer people a lot of structure and organization and support. You have very supportive energy that I feel from you. And I know from Sam's experience working with you, like you mentioned, you very lovingly hold people accountable throughout the process to their goals, to their intentions. And these things, these structures very much feel to me, like you mentioned, like the divine masculine energy really shining through through your program, because it's important to point out for those listening, no matter our gender, we each have masculine and feminine energies within ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you've really been able to tap into that divine masculine side through the detail and the structure and offer that to people with the programs you've created in your offerings. But Nikki, more recently, right, in the past maybe year, you've been able to unlock the other side, the divine feminine energies, by aligning more with your intuition. Am I right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yes. And it's interesting and so beautiful to be bringing up, masculine and feminine energy, because I do believe as a society, a lot of us are more masculinely wired simply because of the way our society is set up. But, to feel and to trust and to know and to surrender are things that I kind of feel like have been deemed as weak. And so I feel like the feminine most oftentimes is the one that is dimmed for people. And, knowingly enough for me as well. And so the introduction of intuitive work into what I do has been the greatest awakening for the divine feminine energy. Every single human on this planet is intuitive, and, we have knowings of it usually in times that are really significant, but our intuition is communicating with us all of the time. And it really just takes such distinct observation because it really is so quiet, but it's present always. And the more I started to just kind of tune into it, I started to think like, this actually might be something, here. There's something here. And I started to recognize that during the coaching calls, I was relying less on the notes that I had prepared off of their journals to guide the calls. And I was relying more off of like the energy and what I was feeling and pulling. And I all of a sudden started guiding most of my coaching calls entirely from an intuitive place. And I felt like it was in that moment that I really stepped into the coach that I wanted to be, because I thought, there's all of these coaching curriculums and courses out there that tell you exactly how to do it. But it's not that it feels inauthentic to me, but it's just not how I wanted to get people to the place they needed to go. So, enter in, I should say, from stage left, my intuitive side of my business. So I recently started doing 60-minute clarity and purpose sessions, which are entirely intuition based. And I have found that they are profoundly instrumental to people's shifting, because you're able to get so much information in such a short amount of time. It really gives people a lot of relief, because oftentimes what I'm reading is like things that they think deeply beneath their soul, and just having some sort of like confirmation and validation that what you're thinking is real makes them all of a sudden more intuitive themselves. So if I can have anything to do with people, deepening their trust with themselves, which is, my main goal, then I feel like I have succeeded.
Yeah. And Nikki, let me know what you think about this. I think part of activating our power, which each of us have, is finding the balance of masculine and feminine energies within ourselves. And I think you are a shining example of someone that's been able to find this balance of masculine and feminine energy and then offer that to people. And through that, access your power and step into your purpose. Once you were able to bring in that intuitive feminine side, really step into your purpose because of that balance you found within yourself.
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. I feel like I've worked really hard at that. So to hear that as validation, I'm like, good job, Nikki. But it is kind of a process. I like to put my feminine first. And for anyone listening, this is something that you can do as well to really find that balance for yourself. But it's kind of like, you first go to your intuition or your communication channel. You just like observe or download or listen or communicate, and you just kind of let an idea or a thought land in your body. And then you let it become part of you and you get excited about it. And then once you kind of connect to the download portion of it, then you kind of say, okay, well, how can I bring this out into the world through divine masculine techniques, which would be like, for example, I love the 7 chakras. I mean, for obvious reasons, but I had an idea one day. I was like, I should do a program, like a quick program around the chakras. And I just like sat with it and I thought, I could do meditation and embodiment practices and yoga and journal prompts. And then that was the downloading of it. And then the masculine was like actually putting it out on my social media and putting the course together itself. Right. But it's like every idea should come from a really embodied and like out of self place. If you're super into like research and study, maybe you don't like hearing that, but I do feel as though it's more of this like knowing of like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to listen to myself first, instead of kind of like going even to the internet to see what other people are doing or asking other people, and staying right with self and letting that kind of be the compass that directs you into what to do next.
Yeah. And it's my hope and wish for humanity that we can all find that and then evolve as a species.
Oh, absolutely. Wouldn't that be a gift?
Man, that's my vision. That's what I'm hoping for, Nikki.
Yeah, me too. I'm gonna tail onto that with you.
And so I'd like to shift to talking a little bit more about you as an intuitive guide, this more recent power that you've embodied, your divine feminine side. How do you experience personally your intuition? How does your intuition speak to you?
Great question. It's varied in so many ways, and it just depends on where I'm at. And that's where I just encourage those of you that are interested in how can you hear it or see it or understand it. It's literally everywhere. There's symbolism in every corner of your experience. It's just a matter of when you see something, like what it pulls you to or what you think. It could be in a song lyric. I'm listening to a song and I'm tuning out, but then there's one line that just pulls through to me and I know that it's a message for me. Or if I'm meditating, like the classic download way where I'm like asking for guidance, sometimes it comes through to me in that way. But like I mentioned before, it's just like this really, really quiet voice. And it doesn't even feel like I'm hearing it. It's almost like it just drops into my brain as like a knowing. And sometimes I'm just like, where did this come from? And then, down the line, it makes a little bit more sense. But to be honest, it shows up everywhere. It shows up in conversations. But I think that most of the way that I feel it is just in my body. It's paying attention to what is pulling your focus in a way that is not anxiety or over analytical thinking. It's just there, and that it has meaning. And that's too where it's so important to and that's why everybody talks about the importance of meditation, is because you have to be slowed down enough to be able to see a thought come in and decipher, like, is that fear? Is that anxiety? Or is that my intuition? But when, you're constantly plugged into screens and other people and like 8,000 things on your to-do list, you're not going to know when something is passing through your head and if it's for you. So I just think it's paying attention to the things that pull you, because they do. And I think that the best way, honestly, for people to practice is, like, we're all very intuitive with other people. You can usually pick up on somebody's energy, if you like them or not, really quickly. But you have that same gift within yourself and your own experience.
Yeah. And I've really been focusing on trying to connect more with my intuition this past year. And I, took some classes, some community-based classes. And for me, I've realized that my intuition kind of pops in as thoughts. Like you mentioned, like thoughts and then it's up to me to discern.
Yes.
Is that my intuition, or is that my ego, or,
Yes.
Exactly. Sometimes just a knowing. In my body, like not even a thought, it's just a knowing. And then like you said too, because we all have that empathic ability, a lot of emotions and feelings as well for me.
Yes.
But I also know I met people through, trying to connect more with my intuition that experience their intuition through different ways, like a lot of visuals as well. Right. And that's not been my experience, but, I think that we each experience our intuition in our own unique way, kind of through your senses, right? Through your body.
Yes. And I should be more specific, because I was more so talking about my personal practice. But like, when I go in to somebody else's energy to intuitively read them, I hear things, but I also get visions in my mind, like very vivid. Like, I am telling people elaborate scenes to describe what is trying to be told to them. But when my eyes are open as a human being, I don't see anything. But I also get sensations in my physical body. Like, my stomach's very sensitive. But sometimes when I'm in someone else's energy, like especially around the throat, if somebody has a very blocked throat, I feel like a lump is in my throat. So I feel it more specifically when I'm in somebody else's energy. Sometimes more than when I'm in my own. But I think that that's just where, like you said so well, it's like the intuition and ego, we're still always trying to discern who's talking to us.
Wow, Nikki, that is so, I want to say, magical that you can experience that so physically, in the visuals when you're working with someone else. That's a gift.
Yeah.
That's a true gift that you've been able to connect like that. I read something recently that I wanted to share with you that really spoke to me, that said, your intuition speaks loudest, comes through clearest in the in-between moments, in the bridge moments, like when you're falling asleep or driving or showering or when you're sitting in stillness. And that really resonated with me.
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting that you say that, because it's loud, but it's also quiet in its communication. Because I would say, but I think that the part that is so important to that phrase that you just said is it's in the quiet moments. All of those things that you just mentioned were meditative actions.
Yes.
Where you are slowing down and you're not doing something that requires your brain to be actively engaged into something. And so that's kind of where the beautiful little intuitive pings kind of shake out of your being and start to show their head and say, I am here. Please listen to me. I only can communicate with you when you're quiet. And that's why I'm louder here, is because there's nothing else that I'm competing with.
Oh my gosh, great connection. That is absolutely the theme. And I read that and I wanted to share it with you, not even seeing that connection myself. So thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
Good.
for discovering
Yes.
that. And then you know what? Then it's up to us to quiet ourselves, to find the
Mm-hmm.
stillness and the quiet and then listen.
Yeah. Well, and so that goes back to the masculine feminine bridge as well, is like the act of meditating or meditative practices is very feminine. But the reality is we got to put it in our damn calendars. So
Yes.
that's the divine masculine. And so that's where a lot of the work like that I do blends together, because I'm like, okay, yes, you want to do all of these things. We've discovered that, but let's legitimately find ways to put them into your life, track them, monitor them, make sure that they stay and stick, so that you can be hands off and fully just feminine and show up. But you have to build the structure into your lifestyle in order to access these feminine practices that are going to give you so much more than you even know are available to you.
Yes. And that is why you have so much to offer the world. And I think that's why people get so much out of working with you. It's because you're offering both of those qualities to people through your program. And that's why I wanted to bring you on and share with people that maybe don't want to work with a coach or, can afford to do something like that, is you can do this yourself too
Mm-hmm.
if you bring awareness to it.
Yeah. And personal accountability. I mean, that really is everything. And that's why, making it a point to invest in yourself in some way. And yes, like you said, it might be out of people's price range, but there is an importance to commitment in this type of work, and to put yourself into some sort of time structure where you are pushing yourself and staying accountable. Because when healing or discovery gets hard, we want to give up. And then that's when we never make the breakthrough. And then the next time we pick it back up, we're like doing all of the heavy lifting just to come back in. So that's why having the structure and the support is so incredibly important. And even if it's just, if you're not going to work with a coach or a program, like even a friend or somebody that is going to be on your tail all the time, because sometimes we just need that push past ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you, for the people that are like, okay, I can find quiet moments, I can do that, I can maybe hear my intuition in those moments, but how are you able to connect with your intuition whenever you want to? How are you able to access it at your will enough, and so it's clear enough so that you can use it in your clarity readings with your clients? Like, how have you found that ability to connect so much with your intuition that you can use it to work with people?
Mm. Becoming a clear vessel. Our body is, and everything that we consume and do create a clear or a very murky vessel. And we are able to more clearly connect and more quickly connect when and it sounds so cliche, but like when we are well rested, not drinking alcohol or caffeine, eating really healthy foods, drinking lots of water, self-care, like those are all things that are non-negotiable for me when I'm doing my work. And it's a lifestyle change for sure, but it also, you just start to recognize how good you feel in general in all other parts. But yeah, I just think that the clearer we are as human bodies and what we're putting in it, the clearer we are going to be in everything else. And so that is like the main way that I'm able to tap in so quickly. Otherwise, I give myself a good chunk of time to tap in. Like I give myself an hour, and some people's energies are very communicative, and others I'm really pulling and pulling and pulling. But I think that giving yourself the space and the time to not feel rushed, and to allow it to give itself time to land is really important, because this kind of work is not something to be rushed. It's definitely something to like sit back and like wait, not forever, but sometimes it just needs a little extra time, and then the beauty kind of just shows itself.
through meditation as well, right? Like through that, to tap in, you have to kind of get into that meditative
Yeah.
state. And I've known this for my whole life, that meditation is the answer to almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
But and I logically knew that, but Nikki, it took me like 29 and a half years to
Yeah,
actually integrate meditation into my daily life.
totally.
So it just didn't come easy. I didn't give enough time and space for myself to do that. And it's only in the past 6 months, to be honest with you, that I was able to find that and give myself the little time and space and
Yeah.
quiet and meditative space throughout the day. It took me so long to get there. And
Yeah.
now that I do feel like my intuition is coming through clearer, finally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I also just think it's such a great idea, and we've already touched on some of these already, but to incorporate more meditative practices in your life. Like this morning, I decided I'm going to do a puzzle for my meditation practice this morning because it was like quiet and I wasn't thinking about anything. And it was just like sometimes you still get the exact same benefits. You have thoughts drop down and all of this stuff because you're doing something meditative. Like I'm somebody who feels like, yes, I mean, we should all sit in quiet and do the classic meditation every day. But sometimes if that feels intimidating, especially if you're just entering it into your practices, like try a meditative activity first. And that could be yoga, it could be walking without music or anything. It could be a lot of different things. So yeah, I mean, meditation can be found in a lot of different ways.
And I want to point out too, because this was a big thing for me, is I always felt like I was rushing around and I didn't have time to meditate
Mhm.
for 30 minutes every day. Like, who has time for that, right? And when I finally found my daily meditative practice, what I found that clicked for me, Nikki, that I could actually do every day was little tiny chunks of time
Mm.
multiple
Yeah.
times a day. So I will
Yeah.
meditate and actually sit in stillness for like literally 4 or 5 minutes in the morning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then again, a few hours later, if I have time, and then even for just a minute, if I walk outside in the middle of my day and just,
Mm-hmm.
breathe and be still in nature for a minute. And then again, when I'm showering or, I just found that little chunks of time throughout the day,
Yeah.
every day, is what finally clicked for me.
Absolutely. And I think that that's also, it has different value in different times of the day. Like in the morning, I think it sets your mind and your soul and your energy up for success for the rest of the day to be really nice and, even keeled. In the middle of the day, I feel like it is almost like a reset. And then at night, it's like your whole nervous system is just like relaxing and letting itself just surrender into the deep abyss of sleep. So it has different purpose in different parts of the day. So I think it's lovely that you get to kind of sample and experience those throughout your day. It's great.
Yeah, and it made it more accessible for me because I just was never able to just do large chunks of time. And that's always what I thought meditation had to be. And I
Mm,
think what I really wanted to share with people today is that it doesn't have to be an hour-long practice, consecutively every single day.
yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. And like you said, it's just like, just try to accumulate as many hours in quiet as possible. And even if that's you driving in your car and not listening to music, I mean, that's a beautiful thing. I just think that where we are right now in society, being so technologically driven and just like always attached to screens, it's just those really special moments that are quiet, not looking at a screen or listening to anything, that you actually reconnect with your human self and your spiritual self. And you just feel this peace that you really don't find anywhere else. So silence is just the best.
Yeah. And sometimes I would just want to point out silence and sitting with yourself. But I also sometimes talk to myself in meditation.
Mm,
So I think silence meaning be with yourself, but so that you don't have all the distractions, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to sit in silence. Because I
sure.
actually do find talking to myself sometimes in meditation helps
Yeah.
me get deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's like a whole different layer, right? Because it's like you are almost talking to your higher self or your younger self, or there's like a dialogue happening, and you are expressing through your throat chakra. You're activating and putting it out into the world where the universe is actually going to have an energy to attach to, instead of it just staying inside of your body. So the fact that you are taking it to the throat is just a deeper form of trust with self, because you're like, okay, I want something to happen from this. It's like an affirming statement.
Yes. And while we're talking about tips and tools and actionable items for people to balance their masculine and feminine energies and connect more with their intuition, while we're talking about that, I wanted to bring up journaling, because that also has really, really helped me connect with my intuition. Because when these thoughts pop into my head, right, that I think are intuition and aren't my ego, I have found that in order to bring that out into the world, I need to write it down. And so I've been keeping journals kind of all over my apartment, so that if something comes through, I can very quickly grab a journal and write it down. And that's helped me connect more and connect deeper and not forget things that pop up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do like, and this is where I tell a lot of people this, but it's like for people that are very logic heavy or very anxious in their thoughts, it's so important to like dump the thoughts out somewhere. And so like a journal is really great. For some people who are very voice driven, I say record yourself in a voice note talking to yourself. Just get it out of the physical real estate that is your head into something else that is like physical, whether it is the air, putting it into your throat or onto a piece of paper, because it just, kind of like they say about studying, it just solidifies what you're trying to express or create or manifest or whatever to a deeper degree. Just like it makes it more real, but it also like eliminates space and overwhelm, because it's taking it that step further to almost conceptualize it to a point that you have to express it. Because oftentimes our thoughts are fragmented things that, unless we take that extra amount of consciousness to turn it into a concept or a solution, right? And that's where the putting it on a page is so important, because it actually forces you to go that extra step and be like, this is what I'm going to do about this, or this is the root of where that came from. Otherwise, it just floats around forever and probably drives you crazy.
Right? You need that little bit of masculine energy to write, to put it down and ground it, to ground that thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, there's also like wounded feminine and wounded masculine. And, somebody who is super feminine could be airy fairy living in the clouds and never grounding themselves. So that is where the balance is so important. And say it, express it. Anything that you can possibly do is just going to help 10 times more.
And do you have any last actionable items as the queen of action that you want to share?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have so many, so I'm going to try to just like dial it in. I really just think, and I was actually just talking about this yesterday on my social platform, but it's just like identify your baseline in life, where you feel the best. And I'm talking from like a confidence and self-love standpoint, from an energetic standpoint, from like a mental clarity standpoint, from an intuition standpoint. Identify what that looks or feels like within you, whether you've accessed it before or not, but like create a baseline and then notice what pulls you off of the baseline. And that's where you want to go look to either heal or discover or start to almost like detox from your life, because the baseline is essentially like alignment, when everything is in flow and balance and in great ease. And so that's what we should all be, working toward. But it's like finding the disruptors that are taking you away from that. And that is like the first place that you should start to go to just kind of dissect what is right or wrong for you, what fills you, what drains you, what excites you, and what pulls from you. But I really do think that like the number one foundational thing to do is to just observe. And that's what this whole exercise is, right? And that's where, I mean, intuition, you have to have really great observation skills to even notice it sometimes. So be a master observer of what is pulling you off in your life, and start to write it down, track it, monitor it, and then also recognize on the flip side the areas that bring you to your baseline. And it could be people, right? It could be food, it could be lifestyle or climate, and pay attention. And sometimes the fluctuations don't feel like huge jumps. Sometimes they're really little shifts, but pay close attention and let your body just do the guiding, because the body is much more intelligent than we give it credit for.
So let's take it from Nikki. It's time to observe. It's time to listen to yourself. Trust yourself. Activate your power. Step into your purpose day by day, step by step. It's time to evolve.